8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Romesh Piris, read by Sounditavam. The Premier issues directives to avoid inconvenience to the public at vaccination programs. COVID-19 cases associated with the New Year COVID-19 cluster is on the rise. A special program to provide necessary facilities to temples in the face of travel restrictions. The Ministry of Education issues instructions for Grade 1 admissions in 2022. Provision of allowances to 6 million low-income Samud and Samudhi families to begin from June 2nd. The former Prime Minister says that there is a need to formulate a common policy to fight COVID-19. In international news, the Israeli centrist party leader nears coalition after Netanyahu fell short of a decisive majority at the general election. In sports cricket, timeless James Anderson targets mind-blowing milestones as 1,000 first-class wickets loom. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has issued directives to ensure the public is not inconvenienced during the implementation of the COVID-19 vaccination program. Speaking during an observation tour of the vaccination drive in the Mathura district, the Premier said vaccinations must be carried out continuously. Premier Rajapaksa visited the vaccination centre at the Mahinda Rajapaksa College in Vellamadama, Mathura this morning. The Office of the Prime Minister said state officials, sanitary workers at local government institutions and non-essential medical workers were administered the vaccine at the vaccination centre. The Ministry of Health reports that another 2,186 persons have tested positive for the coronavirus today. All the new cases are associated with the New Year COVID-19 cluster. This brings the total number of COVID-19 cases confirmed in the country to 182,779. The Ministry of Health reported that 1,434 more patients who are being treated for COVID-19 have recovered and have been discharged from hospital within the last 24 hours. Presently, 31,549 infected patients are being treated at hospitals and treatment centres across the island. The number of total recoveries has reached 149,825. The death toll due to the virus has risen to 1,405. The Ministry of Education has issued instructions in relation to the admission of students to Grade 1 in government schools for the year 2022. The Ministry stated that all instructions and relevant application forms can be accessed from the Ministry's website www.moe.gov.lk. That's www.moe.gov.lk. Completed applications should be submitted addressing the relevant heads of schools by registered post to reach them before 30th June, the Ministry advised. The Ministry also stated that all qualifications must be fulfilled and valid up to June 30th. The government has decided to provide an allowance of 5,000 rupees from 2nd June to those who have lost their income due to the current COVID-19 epidemic and travel restrictions. The allowance will be given to 4 groups: Samudhi beneficiary families, low-income earning families, families whose daily income was lost due to the pandemic, and beneficiaries of government allowances. Families who are beneficiaries of government allowances, if their allowance is below 5,000 rupees, the benefit will be increased to 5,000 rupees. State Minister Shehan Semasingh said this allowance will be given to those who have lost their sources of income due to the restrictions imposed on travel. He said the government has allocated 30 billion rupees for this year's allowance. The State Minister noted this time the allowance of 5,000 rupees will be given to between 6 to 6.5 million family units. Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that Sri Lanka's health sector has reached its tipping point and the only way to protect them is by adopting a common set of principles accepted by all. Issuing a special statement today, Mr. Wickremesinghe urged the government not to use the vaccination program as an opportunity for middlemen to make money, stating that Sri Lanka will need nearly 35 million vaccines if to vaccinate kids over 12 years, as per the World Health Organization's recommendations. The leader of the United National Party pointed out that vaccination of all Sri Lankan citizens may only be concluded at the end of 2022. Therefore, he said, a system should be developed to control the spread of the virus until the vaccination is completed. The Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam chaired a special discussion today with regard to the next steps that need to be taken following the inferno which took place on board the MV Express Pearl. Navy Commander Vice Admiral Nishantha Ulugethanna, who was also present, stated that as of now there is no risk of the ship sinking or leaking oil. The chairman of the Marine Environment Protection Authority, Dashani Lahandapura, was also present at the discussion. The MAPA had earlier lodged a complaint with the Colombo Port Police regarding the environmental damages caused by the MV Express Pearl. This is followed by the collection of seawater samples, which have now been referred to the government analyst. According to the police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana, a special police team will obtain statements from the ship's crew tomorrow. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The Minister of Trade, Bandulu Gunawardena, inspected the Mega Satos outlet in Ratmalana recently, where 5,000 rupees worth relief packs containing essential items are being prepared for distribution in isolated areas. The Minister said that a program has been implemented where the public can arrange the delivery of goods to homes by calling the hotline 1998. Meanwhile, the government's monthly allowance for senior citizens commenced distribution through post offices over the weekend. However, some senior citizens who arrived to obtain the allowance were observed to be inconvenienced. The Subject Minister Shehan Semasinghe clarified that the government has given an allowance of 5,000 rupees to some of the recipients, low-income earners and those who have lost their income due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He further said a hotline has been set up to address their grievances on the eligibility to receive the allowance. Accordingly, concerns can be referred to the hotline 1965 operated by the Prime Minister's office. 34 persons have been injured in a bus accident on the Ratnapura-Kalawana road this morning. Reportedly, a bus transporting employees of a tea factory had toppled after it veered off the road near the 13th milepost on the Ratnapura-Kalawana road. The individuals injured in the accident have been admitted to the Ratnapura hospital. The police investigations into the incident are currently underway. Due to selling alcohol secretly in wine shops in Jaffna during travel restrictions, the Jaffna Public Health Inspector's Office and the Jaffna Excise Office decided to seal the relevant wine stores until further notice. The Jaffna PHI office said the decision was taken after complaints are made to respective officers about the illegal selling of liquor at higher prices by the shop owners. Accordingly, the health and excise officials had decided to seal all the wine stores till further notice as a precautionary measure. That's local news.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Veda Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
A program has been formulated to provide required material to temples in the areas where it is difficult to obtain facilities due to travel restrictions. Accordingly, the Government Information Department stated that steps have been taken to deploy Buddhist affairs coordinators attached to the divisional secretariats to provide the necessary facilities for the temple in their area. Accordingly, the Secretary to the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs has instructed all divisional secretaries to provide the necessary information and came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya. Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
In Watchlight, the Colombo National Hospital announces that information on future clinic dates and medication availability can be obtained through the telephone numbers and WhatsApp numbers provided to inform about the clinic activities of the hospital during the previous travel restriction periods. That came to you in Watchlight. On your bulletin of world news in the headlines, the Israeli centrist party leader nears coalition after Netanyahu fell short of a decisive majority at the general election. Mali coup leader heads to Ghana for ECOWAS crisis talks. And the US and Hong Kong climbers set new records for scaling Mount Everest. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to dissuade his opponents from forming a government as he seeks to hold on to power. Centrist party leader Yair Lapid has until Wednesday to build a coalition. Media reports from Israel say he is close to reaching a deal with ultra-nationalist leader Naftali Bennett. Mr. Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister, fell short of a decisive majority at a general election in March, the fourth in 2 years. Colonel Assimi Goïta, Mali's coup leader and newly appointed interim president, has been summoned to an emergency meeting of West African leaders in Ghana. At today's extraordinary summit, the 15-member Economic Community of West African States is set to discuss how to deal with Mali's second coup in 9 months. The office of Mali's president, in a statement on Facebook, said Goïta would take part in extraordinary summit alongside his counterparts and would also hold bilateral talks with regional leaders. Hiking officials said that climbers from the United States and Hong Kong have set new records as they scaled Mount Everest this week. An official from the company that organized the expedition said Arthur Muir, aged 75, became the oldest American to climb the 8,848.86-meter peak. Separately, Hong Kong's Sang In Hung, aged 45, scaled Everest in less than 26 hours, the shortest time taken by any woman after starting from base camp. Back to the headlines of the world news. The Israeli centrist party leader nears coalition after Netanyahu fell short of a decisive majority at the general election. Mali coup leader heads to Ghana for ECOWAS crisis talks. And the US and Hong Kong climbers set new records for scaling Mount Everest. That's world news, and on to development news. As an initiative of the commercial section of the High Commission of Sri Lanka in Singapore, an online workshop on the development of recreational boating industry in Sri Lanka was successful earlier this month. The event, co-hosted by the Sri Lanka Export Development Board and Singapore Boating Industry Association and supported by the Singapore Sri Lanka Business Council and the Boat Building Technology Improvement Institute of Sri Lanka. Over 100 participants from Singapore and Sri Lanka participated at the event. Panel sessions were focused on the development of the export sector of boat building and the development of the domestic sector, particularly on marine development, infrastructure and nautical tourism, with the participation of eminent industry experts from Sri Lanka, Singapore, UK, Spain, Thailand and Hong Kong. That's development news. Up next, it's sports news.
Sports news is brought to you by...
When Aya bought a motorbike, he bought 2 helmets. So sweet of him. I'm sure the other one is for me.
In whatever we do, we Sri Lankans are always thinking of others. When we get Munchie Super Cream Crackers, they're not just for ourselves. Munchie Super Cream Cracker. Super kiyanne nikang neve.
In sports, it's cricket. There may be absences, there may be new faces, but some things remain reassuringly constant. Barring a late injury, James Anderson will play his 24th Lord's Test this week. It comes almost exactly 18 years after his first. If he does play this week, he will equal Alistair Cook's England record of 161 Test caps. Anderson is no stranger to breaking new ground as a bowler. He shrugged off records after milestones with the same, but even he appears struck by the magnitude of these landmarks. 1,000 wickets does seem like a lot, he said, with a touch of bewilderment. That's sports news, business news to follow.
My wife always sets a full lunch table, even if it's just the 2 of us. She always expects people to drop by, like maybe the army.
In whatever we do, we Sri Lankans are always thinking of others. When we get Munchie Super Cream Crackers, they're not just for ourselves. Munchie Super Cream Cracker. Super kiyanne nikang neve.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
The Sri Lanka Export Development Board is implementing an assistance scheme to enable farmers and processors in Sri Lanka to obtain organic certification as per the Sri Lanka Organic Standard. The farmers and processors willing to follow organic agriculture and processing practices are eligible to apply for assistance. The selected applicants will be assisted by the EDB to cover the initial cost of certification, including field inspection and lab testing of samples. Applications of the assistance program can be obtained from the EDB website www.srilankabusiness.com under announcements. That's business news, economic news to follow.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Moving on to economic news, the central bank announced that the Sri Lankan government will issue treasury bills for 51 billion rupees through an auction on the 2nd of June 2021. The treasury bills will be offered in 3 maturities: 8 billion rupees of 91 days, 23 billion rupees of 182 days, and 20 billion rupees of 364 days. The minimum amount of a bid is 5 million rupees and multiples of 1 million rupees onwards. The issues will be settled on the 20th of September. That's economic news.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Meteorological Department forecast several spells of showers to occur in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Matara districts. Showers or thundershowers will occur at a few places in the Uva province and the Ampara and Batticaloa districts during the evening or night. The wind speed can increase up to 40 km per hour at times in the western slope of the Central Hills, northwestern and north-central provinces and in the Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The Premier issues directives to avoid inconvenience to the public at vaccination programs. COVID-19 cases associated with the New Year COVID-19 cluster is on the rise. A special program to provide necessary facilities to temples in the face of travel restrictions. The Ministry of Education issues instructions for grade 1 admissions in 2022. Provision of allowances to 6 million low-income and Samudhi families to begin from June 2nd. The former Prime Minister says that there is a need to formulate a common policy to fight COVID-19. The Israeli centrist party leader nears coalition after Netanyahu fell short of a decisive majority at the general election. And timeless James Anderson targets mind-blowing milestones as 1,000 first-class wickets loom.